Hello, everyone. Matthew Joseph here, the Director of Evaluation, Supervision, and Hiring here in Brockton Public Schools. And I wanted to bring you a resource today to support you, both the evaluators and the educators in the observation process, because I've had the great pleasure of supporting many evaluators in writing up that observation report and been giving feedback. And I've been taking all of that work and I wanted to bring it into one resource to support everybody in this process, because throughout this process, the observations are time to look at practice, look at what's impactful, give feedback, and really continue to grow as both evaluators and educators to support student learning. So I'm going to share my screen and go through a presentation. It'll be a little bit quick, but I'm going to put the presentation actually in our shared Teams folder so that you can have it. But I'm always someone who not only likes to give a print resource, but also talk through it to give you a little background and also allow for some more time to process and see the thinking that goes behind it. So I'm going to share my screen and bring up this resource. And it's just a document, a slides document talking through the evaluation support. And one of the things that I like to do is go and have look fors. Now, when we talk about look fors, you hear about these a lot in observations. They're really just something for you to look at that's specific indicator for effective teaching, either looking at teacher behavior, student engagement, or the learning environment. And it just helps you bring a focus to what you're looking for. So we talk a lot about just focusing on a few things. And although there are many different look fors that you can have, and I'm going to review a few in a minute, it's not a checklist. You're not going through and saying, I want to see this, I want to see this, I want to see this, I want to see this one too. Less is more. Two or three real general thoughts and observations, because when you go to write up, you're going to have just a few areas to write up and make your feedback. So again, there's going to be a few that I share with you, but we're not going in as this is not a checklist and we're looking at just a few things. So a couple of things that I would recommend is looking at how educators are using time. We're looking at transition. We're looking at small groups. We look at the time to start the class. So this would be an example of a look for, but just one in a possibility that you can look at. Another one I like to look at is questioning techniques that teachers use. How is it connected to the lesson? Is there understanding questions? And I look for students asking questions that are more about the activity or more about the direction. I look for pacing and clarity as well. These are just a few that you can focus in on. Another thing to look for: student movement, differentiation. Again, I talked about the checking for understanding. This is important because sometimes we just go through a lesson versus really taking that time to ensure students understand. And then looking at the engagement. I did a earlier support video about the difference between participation and engagement and how are students really showing their work as well. And then there's some different participation strategies. So these are just a few things to look for. And again, please don't go in and take these two slides as a checkoff that you're going to see all of these things. Two of these, maybe three at the most, to look at and group up some evaluation evidence that you see and observation evidence. So here in Brockton, we use the CEIJ philosophy. Now, I'm not going to talk a lot about judgment because I don't know your staff and I don't have that level of relationship. So that's where you would add your judgment and recommendations to the lesson. But I'm going to talk about the claim. I'm going to talk about evidence that you can gather, and then the impact that it has on student learning. And those are the three key components when we're talking about the observation report. And then you add your judgment and you add your recommendations for continued growth or commendations for things you want to affirm for that teacher to continue to do. When we talk about claim, it's really a statement that you are saying that you saw this happening. Here are just a few positive claim statements that Mr. Joseph made a point of coming back to students who are confused. That is a claim that you saw, and then have many different examples to give to support that claim. The last one is, Mr. Joseph establishes clear routines for the beginning of class, and that sends, and then you would add what that sends. Again, some of these I left off because I want you to add your verbiage and what you saw. But when you talk about clear routines, then you talk about the message it sends, you add that piece in. There's also times that things didn't go so well. And, Mr. Joseph sends negative expectation messages when he doesn't allow appropriate wait time. So you would give examples about that. So the claim is the first sentence or two that talks about what you saw, very specific, unemotional. This is what happened. Then you move into the evidence where you support your claim. As I said earlier in these statements, if the claim was you make a point of coming back to students who are confused, share a few reasons that you made that claim and that you have evidence to show that. It could be student work, it could be quotes. I'm going to share a few examples in a minute. I like to write down what is said either by students or by teachers. I also like to document time, how long it took to do something, or if it didn't happen at all. And then the impact statement really talks about the impact on students and student learning. And you can read through a few of these, but the one that I like to talk about a lot is as a result, and then what happens. Because of, and then you talk about the teacher move. The impact statement relates directly to the claim. When you make your claim, you add your evidence, then you talk about the impact that that teacher move or that instructional move or that planning piece, that activity had on student learning. And again, that's the C, the E, the I, the judgment you would write about what you felt about that lesson. And then the recommendations come from you as you know the teacher's goals and what you want to see them accomplish. So for examples, I had a few in here for you. So a claim statement. Mr. A creates conditions that help all students take risks and sustain their efforts with academic work. So you went in and looked at rigor and you talk about risk taking. This is a claim. You then add your evidence. You talk about what you saw. There was a rubric, there was a self-assessment. I added some phrases that the teacher said. The teacher responded to students' answers by sending positive messages such as, I like that thinking, it shows another view. Or students use language like, I'm wondering, I'm not clear about. So these pieces of evidence support that claim. And then it goes into the impact of this. As a result, his students made greater than predicted academic gains throughout the lesson due to the effort and collaboration. So the impact statement goes directly to the claim supported by evidence. Then you would give any judgment about that or recommendations or commendations moving forward. Another one, Mrs. W communicated and reinforced clear standards for the work of collaborative groups. This was a group effort project. You notice that there were clear standards. You add your evidence. Here's a time one. It took under 2 minutes for students to gather material. Students asked questions. What is this vehicle supposed to do? Another student on the team said, we need to check this data. Again, I'm not reading this word for word, but just wanted to give you an overview of what the evidence, 3 or 4 evidence statements that support the claim. Then you add your impact. As a result, all groups completed the lab and submitted their standard lab report and data poster according to the guidelines and objectives for the lesson. So all this ties in. So those are 2 claims supported by evidence with an impact statement. Sometimes the claim statement isn't as positive. Mr. J did not take the basic steps to ensure a smooth and orderly lesson flow. A lot of times when given feedback, the lesson did not go as planned. It wasn't as orderly and it had some areas of missteps. You also have to support this with evidence. What are some things that happened that resulted in that claim? Materials were not prepped. There was no planned activity for students that finished early. Here's a statement. The teacher said, okay, just be patient till your classmates are done. So these are statements that you can add or evidence that go along with your claim. And again, the impact, what is the impact of not having an orderly flow? That students spent at least 17 minutes of the class period time doing things that were not connected to the lesson or the learning goal. So this is the structure as you work through giving that observation report, and then you add your feedback. And as I said, there'll be either recommendations or commendations, and it's really critical that your recommendations are not only specific, they're also actionable. What are you sharing with the teacher to specifically do? Here's what I'd like you to do. Here's how you can add to that. And then how is it going to happen? How is it going to move that lesson forward? And when is it going to happen? Because It's not a suggestion. It's you're recommending this happens. And then how is it going to happen is the actionable piece that you have in either the report that you put it in the report, but then in your meeting afterwards as well. And really do this so that they are specific to the observation. We often overlap evaluation and observation. Your recommendations in the observation report are directly related to the 3 claims that you make. More general recommendations will be in the goals meeting, will be in the evaluation, summative or formative meetings, but these recommendations directly relate to what you just observed. Also in the commendations, make sure to, if there's something you want the teacher to continue to do, salute their efforts, celebrate the things that they did accomplish, because that will really infuse the educator with more excitement and more energy to continue that practice that you're noting. And then how you phrase your commendations are going to be directly related to you, that educator, and your professional relationship. These were just a few examples that I gave, but again, this is coming from just typing it on a presentation. You're going to have that connection with that educator. That's very important. So for me, I'm here to support you. Come to your school, do quick, classroom walks, look through observations, be there, and not just for the evaluators, educators. I'm here to help you as well, prepare for lessons, talk through feedback that you received. Part of this role is supporting to ensure that observation process and evaluation process, as I said, the first part of this video, supports student learning and supports your growth. So I hope you all have a great rest of December. And as I shared, feel free to reach out to me, email, and we'll connect, set a time, and make this a very positive process and one that we are excited about moving forward in our own personal growth.